For 100 years, this unassuming route, nestled on the high bluffs and canyon walls of Oregon's Cascade Range, has been a vital link in American economy.
They'll pluck off their leader, come back against your second unit, go back to their train, and then you guys will go to Crescent Lake. I mean, probably go in front once they go back to their
And at no point in that time has it been easy to overcome the mountain's challenges.
Another northbounder, and I'll just have them in the summit, and you guys can, I'll give you a restricting into their rear end, and then we should be clear. They're only 6,000 feet, and the summit's 7,550, so you guys should have enough room to do all this, correct? Just want to make sure.
Sure, that's going to work. Just hand you over.
Sounds good. That's what we'll do. Thanks, guys.
This clear and unusually dry February day wound up being the best outing I ever had collecting footage on the hill. The southbound ZBRLC lost an engine in the most challenging stretch of the journey. Other nearby trains have been called on to provide the high-priority intermodal the help it needs from their own locomotives to get the containers back on the move toward Los Angeles.
Okay.
8,000 feet. I didn't know it would be easier.
A northbound Roseville to Lake Yard train has been given the task of adding 2 of their engines to the head end of the Z. The Z stalled out at milepole 548.04 when it lost UP 7318 to engine failure at 4:15 this morning. The most elusive train to find in daylight on the Cascade Sub is this one, which usually runs entirely in darkness, even during summer hours, rolling into Klamath Falls around daybreak. Brooklyn Yard, where these trains are loaded and assembled, elected to send this priority train without DPUs, which on the railroad is known as a conventional train. Also, this train was sent at near the maximum TPA level. Z trains have an even more favorable TPA limit than manifest freights over the Cascade Sub. While a standard manifest's TPA limit is 156, a Z train's limit is 140 tons per powered axle. You can think of every wheel on a modern GE C44AC as being one axle of power, as the paperwork shows them at 12.1 powered axles per unit. So when a third of your effort trades horsepower for dead weight, it immediately creates a desperate situation for a train like this. They went from 136.5 TPA with no room for error to 213.2 TPA and ground to a halt on the 1.8% grade. The breakdown created delays for the northbound Z train and an MRVPT who won the privilege of leaving their monstrous train at Crescent Lake to bring their head 2 engines, the UP 2684 and the UP 8160, north to the Z's hobbled head end. Having 4 units allowed the Z to finally utilize the maximum allowable head end effort for the Cascade Sub of 44 powered axles. After recording this at Tunnel 6, I went downgrade to Wicope, as you may recall from Part 2, to get the delayed northbound Z train. It was after that I made my way toward Milepole 549 to get the next 4 trains. After parking, my radio crackled with more potential bad news from the MPDRVB.
Hey, copy that. Yeah, man, unfortunately, we probably better shut this unit down, over. How far do you have to go before you can isolate it, over? So it's excessive black smoke and Bottle 8, over? Okay, copy that. Well, I hope it don't choke out your other units, being if it's pouring black smoke like that, over.
Oh boy, with trains always running at capacity, you can't get over the hill with even one engine down. I was starting to wonder if I'd even see them up here today. In the meantime, one fortunate train, the Roseville to Hinkle, managed to navigate through the chaos unscathed, gliding down grade here at Tunnel 13. Uh-oh, maybe the hotbox detector will get them with smoke coming off the wheel of a 90-foot flat car. As trains run down the mountain, a soft set to the air brakes is often used to supplement the dynamic brakes on the locomotives. Sometimes, a brake shoe applies more pressure than it should if the brake cylinder piston travel is needing adjustment. Now with 90 minutes until Amtrak 14, I hiked a mile to the south to milepost 549, my all-time favorite railroad location. Along the way, we see the Snowshed before Tunnel 12, which was also featured in Part 2. From above the portal of Tunnel 12, Judd Mountain, seen here in an early construction photo, stands at 6,020 feet tall. Most of the trackage between Fraser and Cruzatte lies within the 8 tunnels and several sheds built through the mountains in that distance. As we get a look back to a southbound from Part 2, I'm just grateful that the builders decided not to build this section of line inside a tunnel, but hung it outside along the cliff. It was also between Fraser and Cruzatte that the rails between north and south were finally joined, and on August 7, 1926, the obligatory golden spike was driven. 1,300 feet below us, we hear the MPDRVB 14 miles away by rail at Heather. The MRVPT, having pulled the Z up the hill earlier, has finally found a new crew with fresh hours to work and has one less locomotive than it left Klamath Falls with.
Hey, good morning. Amtrak 313, we're at Mount 567 decimal 8.
We hear the rumble of the train echoing down Tunnel 11's walls as the lengthy train is currently snaking through tunnels 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and over 2 trestles. As you can see, they had plenty of locomotives to spare, having picked up the set-out DPUs from the day before. If any spare crews are available, they will sometimes run these as a light power move to Eugene. Some places like Switzerland have dramatic railroad scenes like this, with trains clinging to a sheer cliff, but nothing like these monstrous 8,000-foot-long American trains. It would seem that the PT and the HK traded usual responsibilities today, as it is the Lake Yard train that appears to have a rear end set out for Willamette Valley shippers. It was now that I needed to decide whether to hike out to a bluff or stay put for the MPDRVB. It sounded like their engine problems were resolved and it would be meeting this train at Fields. That gave me about 40 minutes to get there, and the spot required almost all of it to reach too. But with great effort, I finally reached the rock outcropping facing the hill. It's hard to imagine what it took to get the tracks laid through here when you struggle to simply hike through it. Yet the work was done. Grading, tunneling, bridging, and track laying completed from Oak Ridge to Klamath Falls between 1923 and 1926. Impossible to achieve today. Just inside that portal, in Tunnel 11 on May 29, 2018, a partial but major tunnel collapse shut down traffic for a month. It occurred during scheduled lining replacement and came close to burying a worker. Fortunately, no major injuries were sustained. Long ago, steel beams were put here, replacing concrete columns damaged by a derailed train. That concluded a great day of rail fanning on February 6. This winter day, it was fortunate to get summer-like lighting without the blooming summer foliage obscuring the view. I believe this picture shows the construction of this short culvert. The following month, I was back enjoying similar weather at Noisy Creek Trestle. Noisy Creek and Shady Creek Trestles are near identical bridges spanning small valleys tucked high inside the deep recesses of Wolf and Judd Mountains. Both are bookended by tunnels. In this construction era photo, you can see the hillside before the snowshed was built. And one snowshed outside Tunnel 7 wasn't ever completed. Tunnel 7 is nearly 4,000 feet long, coming in second only to Tunnel 3 at the summit. The grade here hits 1.9% and is the section of the hill that most greatly challenges the engines.
8118, go ahead, over.
Yeah, I'm going to need a ticket number to run manual. I had to put in manual at mile full 553. The trip optimizer was notching the dupes and the head end down to notch 7, and we need to make maximum speed up the hill to outrun exhaust.
How fast are we going now, over?
We're doing 18, I don't know. But it should be a notch 8 all the way up the hill with all these tunnels, and need maximum speed to outrun the
Dawson Tunnel.
What milepost are y'all at right now? Over.
We're at Malpo 548. Hang on, going in tunnel. Well, two of them.
BCC, the UP 8118, over.
Throttle Notch 8 has for all time been the operating procedure for engineers to ensure their trains get to the top. Lately, a period of growing pains and tension have existed between engineers and the new systems managed by Omaha. The bottom line is, the slower your train pulls, the more exhaust accumulates in the bore. And the more exhaust there is, the less oxygen for the engines to use to fire their pistons. It becomes a snowball effect that can cripple a train that hasn't been using its full momentum. And momentum is critical. Thankfully, today's engines produce less emissions than several decades ago. This tunnel has seen its share of black plumes erupting over the years.
I need the clear. I need number for the ticket number, over.
The EMS, Energy Management System, has been steadily gaining more control. Until recently, it wouldn't control the train over the mountain grade, up or down. Then it was given control over running up the grade, and finally this year, it has started running trains down the hill as well. The system does things at times that make the engineers scratch their heads in confusion, and at times kick it out to run themselves. Because its usage is closely monitored, a ticket number from the Operations Control Center is required for submission at tie-up to keep from getting scolded or disciplined. The engineer today had to fight his case rather persistently to get that number from the manager, and indeed, we tend not to fight them anymore. The allowable conditions for manual running that have been offered us are so extreme, it isn't worth trying. Just as a for instance, I've had a train going down the mountain with EMS running recently that had the head-end power in full dynamics, brake 8, and the DPU helpers in power notch 2, shoving down grade. It's a great way to buckle a car off the rails on a curve. No real engineer in history would have ever run the train that way. But it's not my railroad, and the systems are here to stay. The hotter weather of summer tends to slow trains down more when pulling up the grade. This July day sees a long 95-car drag crawling out of 7. If a train reaches fields and is struggling to maintain 12 miles per hour or above, it cannot proceed through this section, but it must stay at fields until more power is added. Also, if a train is following another southward, it must wait at CPBP 554 South Fields until the train ahead notifies them that they've reached Cruzatte and are moving. The following 11 loaded lumber flats are all from the RSG Lumber Mill in Liberal, Oregon on the Oregon Pacific Railroad's Molalla branch line. Each week, the mill loads 11 cars, and they are picked up by either a local or a southbound train. It seems all 11 stayed together and are headed for southwest markets. Here we see behind switcher number 1202, 11 lumber loads headed for the interchange at Canby, Oregon, where their line meets the Brooklyn subdivision. Ironically, the train's speed here, the slowest of the entire trip between Eugene and Klamath Falls, seems to match the Little Short Line's top speed. Often, as a train's engines derate into tunnels and slow down, they tend to not fully recover to the top speed they made during the first half of the hill until they reach Cascade Summit. In mid-July 2026, another partial tunnel collapse occurred during scheduled maintenance in tunnel number 8. Thankfully, this one was cleaned out within the day. Even so, the next day, more work needed to be done as we see 2 high-railing excavators rushing to tunnel 8. They have about a 2-hour window here between the last train we just saw and a grain train coming up the hill. Beautiful Cruzatte can be seen on the other side of Tunnel 6, which is graced by waterfalls on either side. The only cougar I ever saw on the hill dashed out of the tunnel as we approached and vanished up this little creek bed. All along this section, waters emerge from the stored aquifers fed by snowmelt from the flanks of Judd Mountain.
Dispatch 268 wrote. How long is that going to take you to get up there? Because I got the closers coming for that curfew. You're going to have to remind me, where's Tunnel 18 again? Is that right in that section you're asking for?
Yes, sir. What we're setting on is doing about 1.5 miles high rails, unload, and then come back and take off.
Okay, well, let's get started. I'll take back anytime you can. Yeah, if you don't think you can clear up for that guy at Abernethy, don't take it. Let's do it after Amtrak. RVHK and Amtrak got to get through there. Okay, dispatch up. Go ahead.
Sir, is that PWRB? That outbounder is not going to make it through the curfew?
No, he's got to get to McCready Springs to meet these guys. Sure.
Gave up to him for about an hour, and then it's going to travel up to the
Okay.
Dispatch 268 Wilson.
We're aboard a trailing locomotive on the PDRV, deadheading to the summit to retrieve a train stranded by forest fires near Oak Ridge. Highway 58 remains closed at this time, leaving rail as the only option to get through. A beautiful waterfall greets the north end of Cruzatte siding. One of the reasons this is my favorite siding on the subdivision. The creek cascades down the steep hill right about where the trains stop on occasion for meets, giving crews a pleasant view while they wait. Meets here are rare, as Cruzatte, at only 4,820 feet, is the shortest siding on the Cascade sub. This manned helper train is getting updates from their pushers, as the clearance here for them is about 50 feet, making for a real challenge shoehorning a train in between signals. Most days, trains simply glide by, as do the next two. Amtrak 14 just passed the HK at Abernethy, as their downhill allowable speed is 30 miles per hour, while if EMS is running on speed, the HK, along with all other freight trains, observe a 25 mile per hour track speed downhill. The signal soon changes to approach and then advanced approach as Amtrak clears the first and second track blocks. Most loaded cars travel from Oregon Mills up the hill south, but should a northbound train be heavier than usual, so that the average tons per car or operative brake is 100 tons or more, the train's downhill speed becomes a maximum of 20 miles per hour. Otherwise, the normal downhill track speed is 25. And for freights going up the hill, the track speed is 30. Lately, the ZLCTM, Los Angeles to Tacoma Priority Intermodal, has been running later more consistently, as we find on this spring morning at Tunnel 6. At the south end of Cruzatte, we see the contractor's encampment for a team of tunnel workers. Their focus has been to divert the exceptionally heavy water flow from the roof and walls of Tunnel 5.
Foreman Gates, go ahead, UP8126 South, over.
Yeah, this is CP8126 South. Wonder if we're good to go to get authority through your limits, over.
Nope, sorry, we can't allow Canadian Pacific train shoot day. Try again tomorrow. This is Foreman Gates again, 9397, using one Form B track voltage day, state track voltage.
Protecting the workers from oncoming trains is a Form B.
From milepost 545.75 to 545.00, 1000 to 1900. The Canadian Pacific 8126 South may pass a red flag at milepost 545.
Be milepost 545.75, milepost 545.
The Form B is listed in the Train Crew's Track Condition Summary, or TCS, and is recognized by the PTC system. Contact and clearance must be rendered with the EIC employee in charge before entering the work limits.
That is correct on the read.
Approaching the work limits is a 14,000-ton grain train. I made a special trip up the hill today just to record it. A rare opportunity arose to see foreign power. For the past year or two, Canadian Pacific run-through power on these trains has ended. The train has come from Canada through Kings Gate at Eastport, Idaho, and is en route to Fresno, California. The Canadian Pacific set up the 100-car train with 2 head-end units and 1 DPU helper on the rear. At Eugene, 5 cut-in locomotives were added. This is the most power UP can utilize in a single block, and it can only be found in a mid-train helper situation. This heavy train is still trying to gain its momentum after the 5-unit mid-pack lost power in Tunnel 7. Once back in the open air, the engines slowly come back to life and regain power as they can breathe. For the train crew, it can be a tense grind, hoping the train doesn't stall. But the struggle was amazing to witness. Cargill Incorporated is the shipper, and according to the paperwork, the cars are loaded with meal from Cheviot, Saskatchewan, east of Saskatoon. Usually, all 5 mid-pack DPUs are removed at Klamath Falls, but today, one unit, the UP6499, will be left mid-train to assist the Dunsmuir crew down their 2.2% grade. It is clear some of the locomotives are still clearing their throats after the difficult stretch since Fraser, but the speed is steadily rising. Four months prior, all is quiet at Cruzatte's South Control Point. In cooler months, it's more likely that a derated engine, one that loses its full power output, will continue working, even if not at full capacity. The crews know that unless their speed drops to 11 miles per hour, they must keep pushing. That is the case for today's MPDRVB, which we will see at Tunnel 5's Snowshed. But with a 43-mile grind to the top, with D-rated engines, the chances you'll make the full 198-mile trip are greatly decreased. But if the wheels are still turning at Cruzatte, a sense of relief is felt that you can at least make the top.
MP 9051 south, over. I will get a ticket turned into the locomotive desk and see if we can figure this out. He's just going to keep trying to make the hill over.
Yes, sir, as long as we're making over above, leaving the hills, we can keep going.
Copy that.
Yeah, the ticket here, you're having some locomotive issues. Copy that. Yeah, it's getting hot, pre-turbine temperature faults. So there's nothing we can reset. It's basically usually on these type of units when you're pulling heavy. And the higher throttle notches is just going to reduce quite a bit. It shouldn't stop loading, but it's going to be a light load for sure. Just have to keep pulling there. Hopefully we can make it. I'll get it written up here. That way they know there's an issue with it.
All right, hey, here we go.
For this crew now, the chances of a stall are minimal, as only 2 isolated tunnels remain, 4 and 3. However, the slow progress has necessitated a dog catch. That's the term for an extra board relief crew called out of the crew district ahead to van out and trade out with the expiring crew. 12 hours is a hard limit enforced by federal regulation. From here to the top, the line leaves the steep ledges of Salt Creek Canyon as the canyon walls open up. The grade remains steady at 1.6 to 1.8%, however. Here at Diamond Cut, around milepole 542.5, we're a little more than a mile north of Abernethy. If a train breaks down on the mountain, like we saw with our first train this episode, it must be secured using handbrakes. A chart is used to figure out how many brakes the conductor needs to tie to hold the train in place while the engineer either charges the air brake system or reconfigures the locomotive's arrangement. On the hill, 50 to 60 handbrakes can be expected. Tying a train down in tunnels, as I've had to do on numerous occasions, is an extremely unpleasant experience. Woodchip cars used to be an extremely common Northwest freight car, but with the decline of the paper industry, they have been slowly disappearing. The Cascade Sub sees the most remaining movements of this classic Pacific Northwest product. Lane Forest Products in Eugene is a major shipper of wood chips and bark for use in landscaping, enough to have purchased a fleet of their own cars stenciled LFPX and are frequently found moving to the southwest. One clear reason for the cut-in helpers on this train is the presence of lightweight empty well cars bringing up the rear, which cannot have DPUs shoving against them due to the excessive buff forces that could easily derail their light frames. We're nearing the top of the hill now as we enjoy a look at the view from parallel Highway 58 and its one and only tunnel. The longest siding on the hill, tied of course with fields, is Abernethy at 8,590 feet.
Detector, milepost 541.8.
And telegraphing a southbound approach 0.8 of a mile from us is the hotbox dragging equipment detector, if the roar of the engines for the last 15 minutes wasn't warning enough. It's clear from our vantage, 3 of the 7 engines are under power, while 4 are dead and consist for various reasons. You may recognize this train from Part 2 at Heather. As we see another cut of Lane Forest Products wood chip cars, I'll mention Abernethy is one of the most frequently used sidings for meets, since its length allows for more liberty with longer trains. However, calling an 8,000-foot train long is a relative statement. Though crews on the Cascade sub consider it long, in truth, an 8,000-foot long train on most subdivisions on the system would be considered short. I'm grateful for this fact, that the territory and infrastructure haven't yet allowed for the PSR giant so common throughout our industry. I would hate to see 2 to 3 mile long trains on our route, as you'll find in the gorge. With only 2 sidings in the 198-mile run over 9,000 feet, Crescent Lake being one, hopefully it will stay that way. Diamond Peak, the highest in the region at 8,744 feet, sits a few miles southwest of Pinker Pass summit, which tops off at just under 5,000 feet. The glaciated volcano and the craggy summits surrounding it are often just out of view above the trees along the tracks. Although the winter of 2026 saw very little snowfall, which is known to reach 12 feet deep around the top, although less frequently, the snow-covered trees are still a beautiful sight. Tunnel 3 is 3/4 of a mile long, the longest on the route, cutting through a ridge separating Salt Creek Canyon from a bowl holding Odell Lake. A great feature that helps engineers topping this grade is that the grade goes to 0% for 5 miles along the south shore of Odell Lake. This is a great relief from the worry of immediately tipping down another extreme grade as other mountain passes like the Blues or Donner do. Instead, speed builds as the weight levels off, enjoying a rise in track speed to 35 miles per hour. This topographical benefit made the new mainline route far superior to the extreme Siskiyou Pass line. The unique shelf of Central Oregon's high desert makes for an easy, steady grade over the majority of the remaining trackage to Klamath Falls. On top of everything, when the Southern Pacific train started running over the hill in 1927, it carved 22 miles off the previous run over the windy Siskiyou Pass line. We're jumping ahead to Crescent Lake, the longest siding on the subdivision at 9,575 feet long. It's home also to a Y and spurs used by maintenance of way and snow fighting equipment. Speaking of maintenance of way, we see the new work train, powered not by an engineer or even a locomotive for that matter, but a Brandt truck equipped with high rail wheels, couplers, and even an air brake system compatible with freight cars, as are now seen in its charge. The train, quote-unquote, is switching gonds full of ties. A massive 2-year project has been in the works, trading the old for the new, from the California border to Oak Ridge. Immediately following the Polk move out of the yard onto the siding, an intermodal Brooklyn to Los Angeles train glides down the 0.4% grade into the siding to meet the MRVEU. The Crescent Lake Y has always provided the turn location for spreaders and flangers to return to home base in Oak Ridge during bad winter storms. The small yard was frequently a place to find work extras switching cars. The days of three-man crews are over, sadly, as the position of brakeman was negotiated into oblivion during bargaining several years ago. And now, it seems, maintenance of way even handles their own train movements, as trainman boards continue to shrink. A stint of 55-mile-per-hour track reduces to 45 as the track curves to the left, as this Eugene-bound manifest prepares to descend the Cascades about 9 miles ahead. Wood chips en route to the GP paper mill in Toledo, Oregon, were picked up in Klamath Falls from the Lakeview, Oregon's Goose Lake Railroad via the UP branch line connection at Alturas. This is a typical RVEU, comprised mostly of empty center beams bound for Willamette Valley Shortline Railroad connections. Cars for Coos Bay Rail, Central Oregon and Pacific, Portland and Western, and Albany and Eastern Railroads. For many decades, Crescent Lake was the end of the Hills Crew District. This is the halfway point for trains, as it's 99 miles to Eugene and 99 miles to Klamath Falls from right here. A full crew hotel, beanery, offices, and station existed at this location, along with engine servicing for the big cab-forward ACs and steamers SP ran. Shelter Cove Resort is nestled against the southwest corner of Odell Lake, with a nice view of the north end of Cascade Summit siding from the dock. Willamette Pass Ski Resort is also visible across the lake on this early spring day. Today it's quiet, as it's the off-season, but in a few months, vacationers will have their boats filling the marina and will wave their greetings as trains rumble past on the rocky bluff. It's here at the top that we will bring the story to a close. Cascade Summit, a peaceful oasis, seemingly a world away from the toil and noise of the grade below. The lake provides a brief window in the journey of 1,000 trains passing almost unnoticed, only yards away. As I laid over at the away terminal during the trying days facing the younger guys in 2024, a poem came into my mind that I wrote before hitting the sack. The Eugene Yard terminal was being given away, and lots of trainmen, carmen, clerks, and managers were packing up to change locations or even careers. The railroad has been a place of constant change since its beginning, linked only by the steady rails, ties, and grade through its existence. I call it Rails of Change. Rails come, rails go. Where this iron road leads is a tough old chore. The tunnel's dark, the grade gets slow. The pins ain't pullin', and the bowl ain't fillin' no more. The switchman's got no list or post. Now he's playin' checkers with the brakeman's ghost. Better answer that call, no time for rest. And you won't get sleep till you've passed the crest. Grab your warrant, turn on your light. Line the switch, better do it right. The engine grinds past tall walls of pine, but the hogger don't know which line he'll throttle next time. The conductor's gaze turns a misty haze as hours pass like a midnight freight. Where are we headed? What's our route? Let's pray to God the griever finds out. This project has been a singular pleasure for me. I would never have guessed I would one day be making it. As a Marine stationed in Little Creek, Virginia, I watched a video that captured my interest called Cascade Crossing, produced in the late 90s by Trains magazine. Nor would I have dreamed I would be a conductor on one of those trains, tackling the mighty Cascades in a remote but vital link to the North American rail network. The line has overcome landslides, fires, tunnel collapses, bridge washouts, blizzards, and fallen trees. Not to mention manpower and locomotive fatigue, broken drawbars and knuckles. But it continues, day in and day out, thanks to the tireless efforts of the unseen men and women of Union Pacific. I can tell you, even though this crew isn't even halfway to Klamath Falls, cresting the grade in many ways feels like you're almost there. For one, each trip takes about 10 to 12 hours, but these last 106 miles are usually done in 3 hours or so since you're usually the priority. By now, the dispatcher is desperate to get you in before you die, and you can expect the other trains coming at you to be in the hole. Friends, I hope you've enjoyed this journey near as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. What's most important in life, as on the railroad, is the connections with the people around us. Here, in the days of uncertainty, enjoy every moment and take advantage of the opportunities you have. God bless you all, friends. This is PRP signing off.